50, and today I have with me Dr. Carol Cooper. Hi, Carol.
Hi, Carrie.
Now, Carol, I know you're a doctor, a journalist, and you've just also now moved into the world of writing fiction or publishing fiction, haven't you?
Yes, I have, and I guess it's been a long road writing because I've written a lot of non-fiction. I've written books on bringing up children in particular. You can see where that came from. And now I've done a bit of an about turn and written a novel.
So what actually made you decide to write a novel at this stage of your career and your life?
Carrie, I think I had always wanted to write a novel. I had always wanted to write fiction. I just didn't know exactly what. And in the end, I ended up writing exactly the kind of book that I would most like to read myself for pleasure. But I didn't do it deliberately. And it took the death of my father to get me started on seriously writing fiction.
That seems to be quite a common thread I have with ladies that I talk to. I did an interview with a business coach, and one of the main reasons she said women come to her in their 50s or in their late 40s to set up businesses is because they've actually had to deal with the death of a parent. They've sort of felt it's now or never. Is that sort of what's happened to you as well?
Yeah, it did, although I didn't think of it like that. I do realise, in fact, as a doctor, I certainly realised it. I realised that the loss of one or both parents is a huge watershed in someone's life. But I didn't think it would happen like this to me, and it was actually quite subtle at the time. My father lived in the United States, and I was on the plane. I was going to his funeral, and I decided to have a gin and tonic. I thought that's the least I deserved, a strong gin and tonic. And as I got the gin and tonic, and it came with a napkin, I suddenly had this idea for a plot.
Right.
Got a biro out of my handbag and started scribbling on the napkin. Well, this time I persevered with my plot for the novel, and I wasn't sure why I had done at the time, but in looking back, I think it was because my father himself had wanted to always be a writer, and he'd never been able to fulfill that dream. He'd had really a very dull career in life insurance, and I guess that was the spur.
And from your perspective there, I mean, you said you've written other books which have been non-fiction. How different is it to write a novel as opposed to like a book that's based on facts and advice, really? What are the main differences, would you say, between the two genres?
Well, it is completely different. For example, my non-fiction books don't have much of a plot, and they've got no sex in them.
Right.
Perhaps you've noticed. So I think that's the first difference. The other difference is its style, and you really can suit yourself, I think, with a novel. Obviously, you've got to think about, well, who's going to read it? Do you identify with the readers? Of course, you've got to like and identify with the reader. But I think it's very different to writing non-fiction. Having said that, there is a medical strand in my novel. And that, of course, has got to be completely accurate. It's got to be as accurate as a non-fiction health book.
I'm actually halfway through it, so don't tell me the ending, but we'll let people sort of fight for themselves and read it, really. But so when you sit down and you have your plot, how much time did you then have to spend developing your characters?
The characters were, I think, quite easy to dream up. They're very colourful, and I think they're very believable. The real danger is, of course, you can't take characters wholesale out of real life.
No.
And as a doctor, that's a huge temptation, because, of course, you see all sorts of people. As a medic, you see the best in people, and you also see the worst. And there's no shortage of interesting people in my line of business. And some of them are patients, but most of them are colleagues. You have to be very careful not to put real people into a novel. So I had to make them realistic and believable, but not actually real people.
So do you have friends or colleagues reading the book themselves and trying to see if they can see themselves in any of the characters?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got several friends who say, I hope I'm not Harriet, I want to be more successful than her, or, oh, am I Jeff? So, and I have to say, well, no, you're not, because they're not taken from any one person wholesale. But, it's a little bit of a magpie act, and I think ultimately a writer has to write what they know. Yeah. It has to, at some level, the inspiration has to come from real life.
And once you decided, right, you're going to write this book, how long did it take you from start to finish, and how did you find the time? I know you've got a very busy life. How did you find the time to actually write it?
It took me a very long time, Kerry, and as you say, I've got a busy life, and I didn't do it all in one go. That's the other thing, and that's probably why it took 5 years.
Right.
I did write two other books in between, starting and finishing the novel. I wrote two other non-fiction books, and I wrote a textbook that won an award. But it's completely different from One Night at the Jacaranda, obviously. But yeah, it was difficult fitting it in, but it was so relaxing, and it actually, I think it's an excellent stress buster. If you enjoy writing, if you really want to write, it's a fantastic way of de-stressing.
And did you find a publisher for your book, or did you self-publish?
I self-published with my agent.
Right.
And there's a scheme whereby you can do that if you've got an agent. So, in essence, we self-published it together.
So, if you actually look at the book, I've got the cover here. I mean, the cover's stunning. Are these your shoes? I know a lot of ladies looking at it and think, gosh, they love to wear the heels like this. Do you own these shoes, Carol?
These are my shoes. These are my shoes, and quite often when I go out, for example, my agent had a party, and I thought, well, I better wear the red shoes, hadn't I? But I didn't dare, because you don't want to come home at the end of the evening having dropped something on the red shoes, especially as I'm working on a sequel at the moment, and I may want the red shoes, perhaps in a different pose, for the cover of the next book.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to buy a second pair of red suede shoes.
Oh goodness, what an awful thing to have to do.
Well, really, I don't know. I don't know how I put up with it.
And your second book, are you going to base it on the same characters from the first book?
Well, I can't tell you which characters are going to stay behind and
Right.
which characters are going to go in the next book.
Right.
But yes, there'll be some characters moving on to the next book.
So for other people out there listening today or watching in today, what tips would you give them? If they've always wanted to write a novel, what would you say to them? What would be the 3 top tips you'd offer them?
I would say just do it. Stop looking over your shoulder and just begin.
Right.
You don't know whether you've got what it takes, then just sit down and write what you think.
Okay, so just to recap then, Carol, the book is called One Night at the Jacaranda. We're not going to give too much away. It doesn't say maybe you're hoping to be the next Judy Cooper. I'm not, that's my impression from reading the first couple of chapters. And so that's available probably on Amazon. Is it best place?
It's available as a Kindle and as a paperback on Amazon.
Wonderful. And so thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Kerry. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Bye, thank you.